you are the CEO of your life and career. We talk about financial models. People have said for years, your house, if you have a house or a condo, that's your biggest asset. No, your career to run, it dwarfs your house for most folks, right? So how you run that and the degree to which you actively run it is everything.
Hi there. Thanks for joining us. I'm Joanna Ehresman.
And I'm Leah Alter.
And this is WomenShare, a celebration of women in financial services. Today, we want to say a special thank you to our presenting sponsor, Extella, the home for financial professionals who believe that people make the biggest difference.
If you're looking for a network of firms that elevates every experience for their professionals and their clients, check out Extella today at go.extella.com/womenshare. That's go.axtella.com/womenshare. And today we are so excited. We are joined by Liz Ryan, CEO and founder of Human Workplace, the world's most widely read career and HR authority. Liz is a former Fortune 500 human resources executive and the leader of a 3 million member human workplace movement to reinvent work for people. When she's not leading the charge on change on how we navigate the corporate HR world, she is an operatic soprano that is amazing. And she and her husband are parents to 5 children and reside in the New York area. I have been following Liz's work for a long time on LinkedIn and always found her content to be so thought-provoking. And not what you would expect from the typical HR executive. And we just love that here on the show. So we are so excited to have you, Liz. Welcome to WomenShare.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
We were talking a little bit before we got started recording here. I mean, Leah and I are kind of buzzing with excitement because there's so much that we want to get into. And we just love how you're helping so many people with your work, and want to understand a little bit more about how you developed these frame-shifting HR, leadership, and communication practices. Were they a byproduct of what you had seen in the corporate world? Like, how did this come to be?
Well, I think that, I went to school, out of high school, I went to conservatory to sing. And I had to have a job just to pay my little day-to-day expenses. And I was a waitress. That was a word back then. And I immediately noticed, this is okay. It's a good job. I can make pretty good money. But the way that it's set up, the way that at least that job and the other kind of super entry level or survival type jobs I saw were set up was not good. It wasn't healthy. It wasn't based on making it a good experience for the people working there. Right.
Right.
It wasn't even a conversation. And then when I left school, I learned that opera is not like a thing where you fill out a W-2 and you go to a job.
It's not a 9-to-5.
It's not a 9-to-5, and I still sing now, but it's always been freelance, of course. And so I had to get a job, and so I got an office job, and the same thing. It was actually Payne Weber. That was my first office job. Payne Weber down in the basement of Wall Street. I was 19, and I said, "You got to be kidding me." As a matter of fact, one of the very first things that happened, and I can say that because Payne Weber's not really a thing anymore, right? They've been all subsumed 100 times since then.
Right.
One of the very first things that happened at that job was that I had one friend. There was one person who would talk to me. This is after maybe 3 months in the job, very, very entry-level clerical job. And I'm in the ladies' room. She comes in, half in tears. I said, "What happened?" She said, "Well, I got married a couple weeks ago." Evidently, it was in the paper. Not the New York Times, which at the time reserved marriage announcements, wedding announcements for the 1%. But somewhere else, there was no internet. So it was somewhere in the paper. And personnel, the old name for HR, saw this notice and changed my name in these records here at Payne Weber. And I saw it on my pay stub today. And I went in there and said, "I actually did not change my name when I got married." And they said, "No, yes, you did." Yeah.
Oh my God.
And I was like, call your senator. What? That's outrageous. They will not listen. They at that point in history, they said you're supposed to take your husband's name, and that's it. And she just there was no recourse. That wasn't a thing. I don't know what you would do today if that happened, but I think people would be a little more alarmed. And I said, well, something is off here. Not just here, but here, the big here.
Yeah.
And I left shortly afterwards. I got called on the carpet by a VP for a really stupid. I made a tiny, completely intuitive process improvement, and I got called and said, we're a highly regulated industry. I said, no, you cannot tell me the SEC is watching if we copy on one side of the paper or both of them. That I don't believe that's true. But I just said that I got cast in the National Touring Company of Cats, which was obviously completely made up, just to get out of there. And I did. And that's when I went to Chicago, waitress again. But I said, wow. Because I didn't realize how conventional and unexceptional and unremarked the dysfunction really is. It just happened to be financial services, but nobody else thought it was a big deal at all. They changed your name. What do you expect? You got married. Yeah, except I didn't change my name. Here's my driver's license.
Right.
What's a big deal? You have a different name at work. How dare you, though? How dare you? Right. We just dare.
The audacity.
We just dare. So this was in me. And then when I became an HR person against my will, about 5 years later, I said, well, now at least I have a chance to make this place functional and cool and human and warm and fun and fizzy and all this kind of stuff. And then as time went on, I said, but what about every place? So I started writing and speaking about that and doing courses and that kind of thing to sort of say, there is a way, there's another way. We've all taken in a lot of really toxic brainwashing. And to the extent that we can get rid of that, we can be healthier and happier and more productive and more successful ourselves, and then help other people. And ultimately, if we have the clout and the influence, help organizations and industries do the same thing, just as you two are doing.
Love that. Well, and what is it about the profile of that role where you first had the HR position and you could implement those changes? What was it about that company you think that made them open to that sort of thing?
That's a great question. When I went to Chicago, the Payne Weber experience was kind of like left a sour taste in my mouth.
Mm-hmm.
I have a story for Forbes about it called How I Met Godzilla on Wall Street, because Godzilla is my name for kind of like the scaly monster of fear and institutional bureaucracy and just kind of sludge and all of that bad energy. And it was big time enforced there in the basement on Exchange Place back then. And I knew it wasn't going to be a great thing when I left orientation and went to my department and no one said hi or spoke to me. And then it was lunchtime and they all went to the cafeteria and ate together. And I walked over like, hi, I'm the new girl. And they just didn't even look at me or speak to me. I said, okay.
Oh my gosh.
But anyway, so I was waitressing again in Chicago and happy again. And then at an outdoor cafe, and then it got cold and the owner said, this is an outdoor cafe. I only keep one person for the winter. And so you're going to need to get another job. I said, okay, no problem. I can get another job. I've waited tables for a while, went to some other restaurants and they said, sweetie, you got to be 21 to serve alcohol, therefore to work at a restaurant that serves alcohol in Illinois at that time. And I wasn't, I was 19. So that's why I was forced back indoors to an office job. And it just so happened that I went to a greeting card company called Recycled Paper Greetings. It was Sandra Boynton was the artist. She's licensed all over Hippo Birdie 2Us and the hippos and the birdies and all the turkeys and very fun stuff. And she's a really, really interesting person herself. But I was running customer service for them. And when I was 24, my boss, the VP of operations, said, I'm making you HR manager. And I said, how did I offend you? What did I do wrong? Why do you say that? I said, well, just because, I mean, that's kind of like the biggest trope there is. HR, kind of super, not fundamental, no offense, but let's be honest. I'm in the middle of the business right now. You're pulling me out of the business. HR, not a great rep. seems like an odd thing for someone that you would otherwise think is kind of halfway doing. He said, no, he said, look, we're about to grow really big. We have to hire a gazillion people, and it has to be a great place to work. So we want you to do those two things. And if you don't like the way other people do HR, then you do it differently. So he's a really, really, really great manager.
Yeah.
And so I said, yeah, let's go. Let's do it. And so we grew, there were 30 people when I started in the company. And when I left, there were, I don't know, 2,000, something like that.
Wow.
And then went to another company that had also that kind of massive growth. And the whole time I was doing HR, I thought, this is how to do it. I mean, it's just night and day. Why is there so much fear? Where you just sort of assume to be in trouble or at the edge of being in trouble? Why is there this kind of punitive, heavy? It's not necessary. It's not helpful. It doesn't do anything good for the company. And it's pointless. It's pointless. And there's a way to not do that, but you have to let go of pretty much everything we were taught about what it means to be a manager or a leader or an HR person or an employee. And now I feel like finally, all these years later, people are starting to kind of a little bit speak with their own voice.
Yeah.
And thank goodness. Thank goodness.
Well, and on that same kind of vein, I think one of the most impactful coaching elements that you offer is about helping people really like step into their power. That's what you state, to have lives and careers that they love and deserve. And when I think back on, the last 40 something guests that we've had, a lot of them tell stories of these like kind of pivotal moments when they've had to step into that power and own that to achieve what they wanted to achieve, to live the life they wanted to achieve. So how does one even begin that process?
Well, I think that I had an advantage because I had no intention of spending 2 seconds in the business world as a kid. My dad went to, we were in northern New Jersey, got on the bus in a suit, went to New York, was a magazine publisher, came back. I said, I don't know that much about your job, Dad, but it seems boring. No offense. He said, no, it's really, really interesting and fun. I have great conversations. He said, whatever the business does is not important. It's the people and the energy and solving problems and using your brain. That's what makes jobs fun. These kinds of jobs. It's not that the product is cool. This was magazines about business and construction and all kinds of stuff. He said, it's not that. It could be anything. And it's good because I ended up working for a greeting card company and then a data communications company, a modem company. And a lot of people don't get excited about modems, but it was the people and the energy and the passion. And so my dad said, if you ever work in the business world, and that's not your first choice, but it's fun and it can be really, really fun, but don't take in any of the brainwashing. This is before people started saying, don't drink the Kool-Aid. But that's what he was saying. He said the hierarchy, the big titles, it's all made up. If someone's trustworthy, you're going to know because they say things that are trustworthy people say. You're going to trust your instincts. Somebody has a big title, don't be intimidated by them. If you're conscious that someone's trying to intimidate you, that's their fear. Who tries to intimidate an entry-level employee other than somebody who that's the only person they can intimidate, right? Yeah. He said, so it's just like the rules when you were 9 years old on the playground. Those are the exact same rules in the business world. You follow that fundamental human, trust the people you can trust and, trust your instincts and speak your truth. You're going to be fine because not every company is right for you. Not every manager is right for you. And of course, we now say only the people who get you, who value you, deserve you.
Yes.
You don't have to impress anyone. First thing I noticed when I started career coaching as a business was that the most accomplished, amazing, vibrant, cool, smart, funny, warm, creative people, when they go into job search mode, even if they're not unemployed and they're not the slightest bit desperate, they focus almost instinctively on what they don't have. I don't have an MBA. I don't have any kind of master's degree. I don't have this. I don't have that. And then we have to who said you should? Why are you focused on that? Well, other people will. Yes, some people have everything. Some people have, freckles. People have whatever, mohawks. Why would you? You are awesome. Get that. Feel that. Journal about it. meditate about it. You are amazing. Like most of these folks out here don't even deserve you. Do not externalize and say, what if somebody doesn't like this? Then they're welcome to have a long and happy life without you in it.
Yeah. Well, and do you think most people aren't even aware because the rules, the shoulds have been so part of just such a part of how we came up in the career world that it probably is a fairly big aha moment when people realize like, oh, I don't have to play by these rules. Like, I think Leah and I have had similar experiences in our careers since going independent that it seems a little silly in my 40s to be like, well, wait a minute. You know, but
Oh, it's so normal.
true.
That's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right. People say, right, I don't need every one of these jobs. No, you don't. I say you might need, if you do need a job, then you need a job, not this job. Ever, this is not the job you need. And so we don't want to go on a job search like, I hope these folks like me. I hope these folks like me. No, I hope you like them. Or I don't even hope, because Mother Nature's in charge, right? It's like if you were going on a series of blind dates with people you didn't know, you wouldn't hope that these strangers like you. You would say, well, this will be interesting. I'll meet someone, we'll talk, and maybe there's some fizz there, some chemistry. Maybe there's not. It's all good. Either way, same thing with the job interview. And when you can, over time, really take that in, that point of view, that perspective, you're so much more confident. When you don't care whether you get the job, you're that much more appealing because you're a whole person. You're a whole content in yourself person. And consultants learn this fast, right? Independent folks learn this. Like, I am not here to pander or beg somebody for the business. That's the worst thing I could do. And so I always encourage people to at least put a toe in the water with consulting, even if they're dyed-in-the-wool corporate or institutional people, because they get those muscles that you both have that nobody can take away from you.
Yeah. Well, and you're forced to build them, though. I think that just relates so much to my own journey. There's very much this like people pleasing. I've followed the corporate rules. And then when you're, out on your own and you're deciding, wait, I get to make the rules. And yeah, I don't need to take on every client, even though I'm starting my business. It's just such an interesting growth, area that I'm so grateful for. Because it just opened my eyes in so many ways.
It's the best growth. And it's what's interesting to me is being an HR leader for 1,000 years and administering, or overseeing training programs with rooms. We used to be physical training only, right?
Yeah,
right. Sales training, communications training, all this stuff, technical training. Personal growth wasn't even a topic. Getting stronger. What do you mean? No, you're getting stronger in your skills. When managers freak out over employment gaps, that's another scam. Total fear. Oh, you took a gap. Were you in a terrorist training camp? Like, what? No, I was living on. I always say, well, I wanted to check what you were doing to see if you were working on your skills. Now, why the hell would I need to do that? I've worked here for 18 years and I took 6 months off, and you think that something's going to degrade? Have you met actual people? That doesn't happen. Yeah. That doesn't happen. Nelson Mandela was 20 years in prison. They came out. He's president. He's fine. He's perfect. Your skills don't degrade. That's goofy. That's just complete fear. And so when managers, get freaked out and they say, well, were you working on your skills? They never think, yeah, I was becoming myself. I was becoming the person that I've been, and actually the job impeded me in that. And it was only when I took that time, I said, I know myself now. I know what I need, what I deserve. And the question, what were you doing during that gap, is disqualifying on your part. And I'm actually out of here. Thank you. Have a great day. Because you get stronger. And we say growth, but really growth can be very, very scary to managers. And to very scary.
Right.
Like someone coming into their power.
Yeah. Being less manageable.
Being less manageable, less malleable.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was a Girl Scout patrol leader. Were either of you in Girl Scouts?
I got
in the 4-H club. You kicked out of Girl Scouts?
I got kicked out. Well, of brownies for being a little mouthy. So anyone that knows me knows that's not a far stretch.
Okay, that is like a punk rock band. Kicked out of brownies.
I was an opinionated child.
I got Kit Kat brownies. I didn't have the chutzpah at that time. I stayed in, but it took longer. But I love that. Get out. You just picture like the ripped sash with the mirror sash.
Get out. No, it was more of like they had to pull my mom aside and
Oh,
let her know, and she had to tell me, which I was like, whatever. Look, I'll go eat, I'll go make mud pies.
Oh, that's the spirit, though. That's the spirit. Yeah, I mean, getting stronger is kind of on one hand our goal, but it's the one thing we seldom talk about at work.
Yeah.
It's funny how all that training that I mentioned that every company does, negotiation skills, but they don't teach you how to negotiate with your employer.
Right. Because it's not to the employer's advantage, right?
That's not to their advantage. So just at least opening up a conversation about this disparity and if you go further, sometimes, brainwashing, indoctrination, fear-based management and all that is itself a healthy thing. And any time that a person can start that conversation at work, and I mean, it's crazy how even now, 2025 on LinkedIn, I get messages every single day, DMs that say, I wanted to comment on your column or your post, but I didn't dare do it publicly because my manager monitors our stuff. Oh, that's a good use of a manager's time, browsing around LinkedIn to see what the underlings are saying. So you don't even speak with these are not, by the way, radical thoughts. They're, you've seen my posts. It's, common sense on the side of people. That's managerial malpractice right there. And so the question is, you're writing to me, and that's fine. I appreciate the note. But if you can't post something or even like a post on LinkedIn because your manager wouldn't like it, really the question is, why do they still deserve you? Why does that manager still deserve you? Isn't it time to say, I am 36 or 45, 62 years old, whatever. Why the heck am I still working for this person who is so obviously not qualified to be any kind of mentor or leader to me, role model, or anything like that?
So true. So true. Before we jump into our next question, we want to take a moment to say that we are so proud to be partnering with Extella, where exceptional service is the standard.
Yes, Extella elevates and empowers financial professionals to build a stellar practice and leave a lasting impact for their clients, which is what binds so many of us in this industry anyway. Explore how Extella goes above and beyond for their professionals by visiting go.extella.com/WomenShare. That's go.axtella.com/WomenShare. So, Liz, back to you. You state that we all need to think and act as CEOs and entrepreneurs now, whether we're, still working in corporate or working for ourselves. I would love to just go deeper into that and hear some practical ways that our listeners can apply this in their everyday career.
Sure. The first thing is to look at, as you mentioned just a minute ago, Joanna, how we were not taught to do that. And just question that and just focus on that a little bit and say, wow, I learned so much in school and I learned so much outside of school from adults around me and just watching the world operate. And I learned what to focus on and what to value, following orders, sitting in rows, doing the work. The work in school is called work. It's called work.
Right.
School work. And I didn't learn to find my own voice, to listen to my own heart, to be tuned in to a frequency about what enriches and nourishes me, to develop my own path or think of my career as something that I run. Why didn't I learn that, especially as the working world started to shift away from the old cradle to grave employment model from the post-World War II era, starting in the 80s, to a completely like you're on your own, every person for themselves model, where, as we see around us right now, you can get laid off at the drop of a hat for no reason whatsoever. Surely by now we should be teaching people it's your career to run. You are the CEO of your life and career. We talk about financial models. People have said for years, your house, if you have a house or a condo, that's your biggest asset. No, your career to run, it dwarfs your house for most folks, right? So how you run that and the degree to which you actively run it is everything. it starts with that awareness. Somebody handed me the keys, whether I wanted them or not, and now I have to drive the vehicle. I have to decide where it's going. I have to gas it up. I have to provide the fuel. And most of all, I cannot let anybody else be in charge of my welfare and my ability to pay the rent. Meaning we can never get comfortable at a job. Never. Being an entrepreneur is not that much different from being a working person, an employee, if that employee is powered up and taking the reins. If they're not, then yeah, it's night and day. But the reason that a person who gets laid off is very often in a much worse position than an entrepreneur, a consultant who loses a client, is because the consultant says, well, I didn't love losing that client, but whatever, I'll get another client. They got the muscles. Person who has never developed muscles because no one ever told them they should is devastated. As I mentioned earlier, they immediately say to me, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't know if I'm any good. You don't know if you're good? You've been a director of whatever, of risk, you've been this, you've been that. You don't know if you're good? Is it just the layoff? Yes, it's the layoffs. It shook my confidence. 4,000 people got laid off. It had nothing to do with you. I know, but it still feels personal. We have to proactively work against that when we're employed, not just wait until we're not employed and the axe falls, and then I have to start working on my self-esteem. I think everybody should interview for jobs every year, couple, 3, 4 times, whether they love their job or not. And if you don't do that, it's borderline irresponsible because you have to be ready. It's 10 times more important to know how to be able to get a job and have the mindset for that than to be able to do the job. Because obviously it's harder to get a job than it is to do a job, virtually every job. So there are active steps that you can take toward running your career. So if you do lose your job or find it untenable and decide to bail, it's an inconvenience, it's a hassle, but it's not devastating. It's not disastrous.
Yeah. Wow. That's like a mic drop moment. I absolutely love that. I mean, I think we get so comfortable in our jobs and yeah, we're happy enough, or, we got that raise. So those things that bother me don't bother me as much anymore because I got a little more money, the golden handcuffs, there's all these things. So working on that confidence and those skills while you're happy in a job is like, gosh, that's game changing. Okay, Liz, we ask every guest who comes on the show, and I feel like you're the perfect guest to ask this question to. What is the best career advice that you have ever received?
Well, I mentioned my dad before, who kind of inoculated me a little bit and said, just don't take any of this business stuff too seriously. Don't let anybody decide how you feel about yourself. You get in trouble, somebody yells at you. They kick you out of brownies, anything like that. You say, consider the source. It doesn't matter, and I've tried to take that to heart. But I would say from people that I actually worked with, my boss at US Robotics, the tech company that I worked for, I started there as employee, I think 105. And when I left, there were 10,000 of us. So the company went public and grew a lot. And he said, my job as the president and your job as the leader of HR is to run ahead of the pack here and remove obstacles, clear away obstacles. Anything that's going to keep people from just racing down their path unimpeded, doing what they do well and love with other people who are doing what they do well and love. It's all about taking away obstacles. Any obstacle in the way, get rid of it. If it's red tape bureaucracy, if it's political stuff, if it's role confusion, if it's dumb, jurisdictional conflicts between departments, just stupid stuff. Get rid of it, get rid of it, get rid of it. And if I do something dumb, then you tell me. And if you do something dumb, I'll tell you, or somebody else will. And we just won't do that stuff anymore because we're just going to be smart and wise about people. We know how people operate. And that's the job more than anything else.
Yeah, what a wise leader too. And
Yeah.
and just like the framing of how you would approach any interaction, any meeting, right? Like how empowering for you to have that mandate, right? And to earn it.
Absolutely. I really lucked out with my employers. And I think that for HR people, you can't work for a dysfunctional. If you do, then it crushes you and your brand. Because all you have to sell to the next employer is what did you accomplish at the last one. And if you didn't, then it's just like salespeople and marketing people, lots of people, engineering people. You have to be able to say, here's what I did and that made a difference. And if there isn't anything like that, you can't stay, you can't stick around.
Yeah.
And you have to know that your compass inside is the best one and the only one that matters. It's like you and your employer are on the same highway together in parallel, but at some point you're going to veer off. And you have to be aware that they're not. That's not their issue. That's not their problem. But the idea that the paths will just stay in sync for 35 years, 40 years is not nowadays.
It's not reality.
Foolish. It's not reality.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Man, I can't wait to re-listen to this episode already. There's something good. Liz, outside of the great work you're doing at Human Workplace, what else can we celebrate with you today? We love just celebrating our guests. What can we celebrate?
What can we celebrate? Work-related, not work-related?
Well, either one. But
okay, let's see. All of our kids are doing amazing, amazing things, but one of them is now playing the trombone on Broadway. So that's kind of a fun thing. Yeah.
Amazing.
So, you think of careers as like, you go and do a W-2 job. And I certainly have done that for years and years. You guys did it. But there's all kinds of careers. And when you play trombone, there's not very many W-2 jobs. But there's things like playing the trombone for Broadway shows, which is just too much fun. And, so we make our own paths. And I guess, in a way, kind of my thesis is that sort of path is not really any different from someone who does work a W-2 job and applies for jobs and wears a tie and jacket or whatever, heels, whatever, because we're still if you're in charge, if you're running it, it's just as freeform and freelancy as that Broadway musician's career, except it happens to come in W-2 clothing. And really, if you embrace that mindset that we're all entrepreneurs, and that's the only mindset we can have now, that's the only perspective we can have, is an entrepreneurial perspective, and constantly be course checking. You leave, you stay, you start a side business, you start a thought leadership platform, you do what you need to do for yourself, financially, creatively, philosophically, whatever. You're going to be rooted. You're going to be solid, versus ever accepting the view that your employer is more powerful than you are. That's absurd. Why? What? No, ridiculous. There's a lot of people are hiring.
Yeah.
It's never just one firm. This brainwashing, it's very intense that anybody would think employers are more powerful than I am. What? That's pure nonsense.
I wish my 30-year-old self could be part of this conversation, right? Like there's so much that's but just.
And how many times I was told like, it's not better somewhere else.
And what a weird thing to say.
Right? Like to keep me where I was. They're like,
I've
been other places.
Yeah.
I've been other places and it's not better.
So they say it. That's what people say. Grass is greener. Yeah. And sometimes it is. And you know what? It's not just whether the grass is green. If my body says this grass is not green enough for me, I owe it to myself to go check it out and learn what green grass looks and feels like. How dare you? How dare you tell me don't go anywhere else because it's dangerous? Really? Change is the only way we grow. And that's how our muscles get huge. And that's why consultants don't have these fears, because they've been in and out of so many organizations that, I figure out in about a week what each organization is like, what they need, how they tick. It's not a big deal. But if you're afraid to leave and you got people telling you, yes, stay afraid, it's scary out there. Well, then give me a contract. If it's scary out there, give me a freaking contract that says that if you guys lay me off, I get 6 months or a year of salary. Then we'll have a conversation. We get that. The United States is the only industrialized nation that doesn't have contracts for employees. Every single other industrialized country in the world has contracts. And people in Europe and Asia and elsewhere are like blown away when they say, Liz, people put their head on the pillow and go to sleep at night and they could be laid off tomorrow. I said, yeah, and most of us have.
Yeah.
Get out of here. No, it's real. They can change your salary. They can change your hours. They can change your title without your permission. Yeah. That's nuts. Yes, it is.
Well, this is our wake-up call that, gosh, yeah, we don't have to accept the nuttiness of it all. This is great.
Yeah.
Liz, I can imagine whoever is listening to this within our audience here would love to follow you or learn more. What's the best place to direct them to? How can they get connected with what you have to say?
Follow me. Well, on my LinkedIn profile, all the socials, there's a tap link where you can follow me or see my stuff on any, on TikTok and Blue Sky and Instagram and whatever, Twitter, X, Facebook. But you can also find me at humanworkplace.com, which is my website.
Yeah, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you again so much for coming on the show. And thanks again to our sponsor, Extella, a network of firms that elevates every experience for their financial professionals. Visit go.extella.com/WomenShare. That's go.axtella.com/WomenShare.
And with that, that's our show for today. If ours is a mission that you want to share in, subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast platform. With that, I'm Joanna Ehresman.
And I'm Leah Alter, and we'll catch you on the next episode of WomenShare.